A very good morning to one and all present on this virtual platform. At GLS University's Faculty of Commerce SMPIC, it has been our constant endeavor to nurture young minds and inculcate new thoughts and ideas. What better than making this millennial generation aware about the recent legal provisions? With the motto of molding minds and shaping careers, we begin with a lecture series, Academics and Beyond, whereby we invite subject specific experts to talk to our students about the contemporary issues in various areas. With this thought in mind, we thought of including the most talked about topic, and not only topic but the most talked about the person, that is the consumer himself, and how his rights are protected as per law under Consumer Protection Act. For this purpose, we have invited today Dr. Deva Prasad M, faculty member of IIM Kozhikode, to give us an overview about the topic with practical and live examples. First of all, let me invite our Dean, Dr. M.E. Joki sir, to welcome the speaker of the session. Sir, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ashal ma'am. Good morning, Dr. Deva Prasad, expert speaker of the day, Dr. Ashal ma'am, Keyur sir, and dear students. Rightly mentioned by Dr. Ashal ma'am that at GLS University Faculty of Commerce SMPIC, it is our constant endeavor to provide an ideal and a creative learning environment. And on behalf of GLS University Faculty of Commerce, I would extend a sincere gratitude to the vibrant and dynamic speaker, Dr. Deva Prasad, a faculty member at IIM, for sparing his valuable time to conduct a session on a very relevant topic, Consumer Protection Act, for our students. Consumer protection is vital, not only to protect buyers from seller, but also to ensure equitable global standards and the protected growth of the Indian economy. And I'm sure today students are going to have a great learning experience. Thank you so much, sir, for sparing your time. And I also acknowledge and appreciate the efforts of Dr. Ashal ma'am for the wonderful coordination of today's session. Thank you so much. Ashal ma'am, you may please take it forward.
Ma'am, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, Ashal ma'am.
Thank you so much, Joki sir, for your insightful words. Now, talking about the speaker of the day, Dr. Deva Prasad M currently holds Assistant Professor of Law position at Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode. His current research interest includes corporate law, intellectual property rights law, and environmental law. He holds an LLM from National Law School of India, University, Bangalore, and PhD from National University of Juridical Sciences, Kolkata. Prior to his present position, he worked as an assistant professor in NLSIU, Bangalore as well. He has published various research works in reputed journals, which includes International Journal of Law and Information Technology, Environmental Policy and Law, Economic and Political Weekly EPW, to name a few. I am sure his academic intelligence and command over the subject will help us understand this interesting topic in a better manner. We welcome you, sir. Over to you, sir, for conducting the session. Thank you.
Thank you to GLS University Faculty of Commerce for inviting me. So straight starting the session, can I get the my PowerPoint loaded? Then we can actually
Yes, sir.
Get it initiated. Yes. Right. Hope I'm audible as well as the PowerPoint is visible to all of you.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you. So today I'll quickly give an overview of consumer law, or specifically in Indian context, we usually refer to the Consumer Protection Legislation or Consumer Protection Act. So first, let us look at an interesting scenario here. So if you look at a scenario where we buy a particular product, let us take the example of a laptop, and there is a major damage, or there is a major crash of the laptop system within a very short period of time, within 1 or 2 weeks. What is the way in which we can be protected, or what can be done by the person if you are being informed that it's a defective product as such? Let us assume another situation also. Let us look at a situation where a person goes to a bank and try to open a banking account, and he's being provided all the facility, including the internet banking facility also. But it has been noted that after getting this facility and opening his bank account, he, it is significantly problematic to operate internet banking, even though that was part of the service that's being offered by the bank, by by the by the by opening the account in the bank context. So if you look at these two scenarios, what could be done as a consumer or as a business organization? What is the obligation for the business organizations towards the consumer? Becomes two important questions that arises here. What is the role of Consumer Protection Act? So Consumer Protection Act in India was brought into picture in 1986. Substantial amendment to the Consumer Protection Act has come up in 2019. But in essence, the main legislation actually tries to look at the aspect of how, if there's a defective good or deficient service is being offered by any service provider, then how the consumer can get his grievance being redressed by consumer forums at the district, state, as well as central level. That is the main purpose for which the law has been brought into picture. So it actually allows the consumer to go to the district, state, or to the central forum or consumer commission, and raise an issue against a business organization, saying that you have not provided me with adequate service, or what could call as deficient service, or you have provided me with a deficient or a defective product, where the product has not been as per the minimum quality standard that is required. So this issue can be raised by a consumer against the both business organizations which provide products, as well as business organizations which provide services. So as we just started with the scenario, both in the context of a product like a laptop being bought, as well as service like a banking service being availed. Both in the context, if there is a defective goods in the product category or a deficient service in the service category, you can go to the consumer courts or consumer redressal forums as such. Then obviously you can actually ask for a replacement in case of the product, or compensation. In the context of service, you can actually ask for compensation for the deficient service that's being provided to the consumer. Now let us look at certain interesting scenarios which has come up in Indian context very recently. um, this was a scenario which we all can relate to, because a person goes to a very premium upmarket um, hotel, where he actually asks his car to be parked in the valet parking facility. The valet parking facility, while being availed by the customer, he was given a parking tag, which actually clearly states that the hotel won't be responsible for any of the um, theft or damage or whatever happens to the vehicle, or you are parking at your own risk, or owner's risk clause, as we usually see whenever we park vehicles at places like malls or hotels. Such a slip or parking tag was being provided to the customer. Interestingly, And unfortunately, also, when he returned back, it was found that his car was missing from the parking facility, and was informed to him that someone has already driven out with the car, or like someone has gone out with the car, which is an interesting case of what you could call as a theft also. Now the question is that can you hold the upmarket premium hotel group liable for this? So there is a prolonged legal battle in Indian context, and the question is that how do you actually hold them liable? What extent they would be responsible, or what extent they can be held responsible in that context as such? Interestingly, in 2019, the Supreme Court of India gave a decision saying that the hotel group can be held negligent in this context. Why? Because even though just mentioning the owner's risk clause doesn't protect you from taking all the responsibility that you have towards the customers under the consumer protection law. You still have responsibility towards customers under the consumer protection law, and you have treated the customer or the consumer without adequate care, and which actually amount to be a negligent business conduct, or what you could call as a deficiency of service context, and hence the car owner has to be compensated by the hotel group. That was the decision which came into picture. So you can actually see, even in the context where when consumers are being told that okay, you don't have an redressal mechanism, or you won't able to actually get a compensation, or hotel group is not liable. Many of such situations have been rewritten, or such situations are looked into by the courts and said that you cannot throw the customers out without any adequate care. You have a responsibility towards customers, and you have to adequately attend to the responsibility towards the customers as such. And let me actually also give another interesting case which actually came up some time back in the consumer law context. A person goes to a very famous um, footwear brand storeroom, and he actually purchases a shoe. The customer actually found that the price of the shoe has been taken. Along with that, there is a rupees 3 that is being taken for the paper bag that is being provided. So we may actually think it's a very minor issue, or it is a very trivial issue also, could be, because just 3 rupees 3 has been charged. But interestingly, the consumer or the customer feels that there is a problem in this context. What is the problem here is that customer says that I never wanted to pay for a bag in which the company has advertised or has put their own logo and put an advertisement also, because supposedly in the cover it was clearly mentioned that Bata was being mentioned, and they actually also mentioned about what you could call as advertisement regarding the new products and other aspects being mentioned in the cover. Now the question is that uh, can can the consumer raise an issue against such a practice of the company actually asking to pay for the bag and putting their own logo and advertisement on the carry bag that is being provided? Here the counter argument which came from the company is also very interesting. Company says that we are trying to reduce plastic as well as other materials that's being used by the customers, and for that particular purpose we are actually providing bags only at a additional cost, so that they will also be pressurized to reduce the usage of such bags as such. Interestingly, Consumer Court looked into the matter and said that this is amounting to an unfair trade practice under the consumer law. So, consumer law also deals with this concept of unfair trade practice, where you are actually not treating the consumers with adequate care, or you are trying to exploit the customers, or you are not looking at the interest of the consumers adequately. The consumer court can actually say that this is a case of what you could call as unfair trade practice. In this particular matter, it was said to be an unfair trade practice because the issue was that if you are actually providing providing a paper bag, without any amount or without charging any amount, you can put an advertisement on it, and you can actually put your own logo on it as a company. But if you are not providing it freely and you're charging for it, then you cannot use that paper bag as a medium for advertisement or putting your own logo on it. And that is interestingly a situation which actually had to face by even certain of the retail brands in India. Large retail brands in India also had to face a similar situation in the court when they also gave bags and charged for the bags and put their own logo and advertisement on the carry bags. So these are also interesting situations which have come into picture in the context of the recent issues in the consumer protection law in India. Now, I'll also look at certain other issues which can be looked into the consumer law. So when we just talked about this concept of unfair trade practice, consumer codes and the Consumer Protection Act empowers the legal forum to look into issues such as purchase of a um, real estate apartment or a flat. When you buy a flat or real estate apartment, arbitrary dealing by the builder to the consumer, that also could be dealt under the issues of unfair trade practice and under the consumer protection law. Now, this is also interesting to note that you have specific mechanisms like real estate regulatory authority. In most of the states, it has already been such a regulatory authority has already been in place. But it is also significant to note that certain states it's not being operational, and even if it's operational, still you can go to the consumer court and actually ask for a redressal from the consumer forum also. So any kind of unfair treatment, unfair dealing of consumers by the consumer sorry, by the builder or such other business organizations also could be taken to the consumer court and said that you are not fairly dealing with me. The contract or the agreement which you have entered with me as a consumer is only in favor of you, or it's very unfair against me. Such kind of issues can be brought to before the consumer courts, and this is importantly a right consumers have, as well as an obligation which the companies or organizations may have to be careful when you deal with your customers as such. Now, let us also look at certain other interesting scenarios which do arise under the consumer protection law. Now, let us look at this scenario where many times advertisements come out, but advertisements or ads are not always conveying the full meaning or the full disclosure, or correct information may not be always being correctly been informed to the customers as such. So the scenario here is that where a customer is being told that you have the facility of availing a very good telephone or mobile plan, which actually charges only 40 paise per minute, but it is found that that rate is applicable only when you call to the same customers or same service providers numbers that is being serviced by the same service provider as such. So that is interestingly a case which actually can be coming under the consumer protection law under the aspect of what you could call as false or misleading advertisements. So this is a very interesting class of issues which can be brought under the false and misleading advertisements, where any kind of wrongful claim saying that my car which I'm introducing to the market would give you the best mileage, or the mileage of what you could call as way above than the other competitors. But if it is found to be false or misleading in certain ways, you can actually go to the consumer courts. That kind of issues, along with the issues like various of the cosmetic brands, as well as various of the electronics, as well as beverage brands. All these brands may actually provide you with various claims. If the claims are actually found to be found to be false and misleading, that can come under the ambit of misleading and false advertisement aspect. Here, just to give a clarity, one important aspect which you need to note is that advertisements always usually have some element of puffery. Puffery, which means that my advertisement is best, it's quite good, or my product is good, my service is best. That kind of statements, can it be considered to be false or misleading, is a question that arises. So please note that it is not always when you actually say that my product is best or my product is good, we cannot call it to be a false or misleading advertisement. But the claims that is being made, for example, my product will help you to solve your beauty problem in 15 days. Such kind of claims that's being made by various cosmetic brands. That kind of claims, if being made by the brands, and it's being trying to be sold to the customers, it can actually come under the issues of misleading or false advertisements under the consumer protection law. Now, since we are dealing with the consumer law, I'll also mention this interesting aspect, which would be of use for any of the commerce or any of the students as such. So there is a concept of Advertisement Standard Council of India, which is a self-regulatory body which the industry themselves have created, saying that rather than going to the courts, you can actually first come to us. That is the Advertisement Standard Council of India, which we will try to stop various of the misleading or the false advertisement by ourselves as an industry body. We'll try to solve the problem for you, and you don't have to actually even go to raise a complaint. You can raise a complaint online itself in the Advertisement Standard Council of India against any of the advertisements on the aspect of misleading, false, or any of the ethical issues which may come up in the advertisement context. So that is also an aspect of consumer protection mechanism that is available in India. That is apart from what you call as consumer codes, you also have industry-led self-regulatory mechanism called as Advertisement Standard Council of India also. Now, I'll just quickly look at a couple of misleading advertisements for better clarity. So there has been an advertisement against a particular company which actually came out with a product called as Zero Sugar, and that particular advertisement on one hand said zero sugar, and their own advertisement which later came out said that it's a low calorie sweetener. This was found to be problematic because at one point you are saying it's zero sugar, and another ad you are saying it's a low calorie sweetener. The company was asked to revise their advertisement because it is leading to wrongful information or misleading information being given to the customers. So that is one of the advertisements we can actually look into. There is other couple of advertisements where companies have claimed free surveys or free regional pack for life by a digital DTH service provider, but it was later found that it was not a completely valid claim, and it was again considered to be misleading advertisement as such. Even insurance companies which actually claim that your only cost will be a particular amount of money, but that was not being clarified that that kind of premium would be only be available for people below a particular age, was not being mentioned in advertisement. So such kind of aspects can be considered to be what you could call as misleading advertisements as such. Now, misleading advertisements can also come under unfair trade practice certain times when you make false warranty claims in advertisements. So we actually see that in various products which says that advertisement, we actually see false warranty claims. That can again come under the ambit of unfair trade practice. Issues of a prohibited category of products which have tobacco content, or what you could call as certain medical products which are prohibited from advertisements, and even products which actually have alcohol content. Such kind of products are being clearly been prohibited from advertisements, and such kind of products, if advertised, again it come under the aspect of consumer protection law violation, and unfair trade practice issues do come into picture. Now let me actually get into an interesting topic for all of you to look into. This issue is the concept of disparagement advertisement. Disparaging advertisement is another interesting uh, issue which is coming up very significantly in the Indian consumer law context, and this is interesting for commerce students especially when all of us view various advertisements on television and the YouTube or new media, as well as in newspapers. We actually see advertisements, or we have been what you could call as exposed to various advertisements as such. But there is an interesting aspect of advertisements which says that sometimes advertisements are showing the competitive product in a bad light, or you are trying to show that your competitive product is not good. Such kind of advertisements are very interesting because many times it leads to various legal issues also. So I'm just referring to an interesting case between two very large FMCG brands in India, Amul and HUL. So the advertisement was issued by Amul, where they said that only the ice creams or only the products which Amul markets into the Amul markets, or Amul brings to the market, are basically what you could call as ice creams or real ice creams. And they said that all other products which claim to be ice creams are not actually ice creams, because they actually contain something called as edible vegetable oil, and doesn't actually have pure milk in that particular product. And the entire idea was that Amul saying that all other category of products need to be referred to as frozen dessert. That is the categorization which usually we see when we actually go to other countries, foreign countries. We see this categorization of frozen dessert coming into picture. This was the idea which actually was raised by by Amul, saying that HUL uh, has to clearly refer to as not HUL, all other brands has to be considered to be frozen desserts, and only Amul actually produces or come up with what you could call as real ice cream. So interestingly, this matter was looked into by the Bombay High Court. Bombay High Court said that, look at this matter. What you are trying to say is that you are showing the other brand in a bad light. Other brands, all other brands which come out with ice creams or frozen desserts in the Indian market, you are actually showing them in a bad light, or you are saying that their products are bad because they contains vegetable oil, and they are not actually having pure milk content in it. So this issue was raised where Bombay High Court actually looked into the matter and said that, see, you cannot air an advertisement with a negative campaign against your competitor, because it is not a right practice, or it can come under the context of what you call as disparaging advertisements as such. To cut the long story short, I'll just come to the issue here, where interestingly, there was a counterpoint which the Amul also raised. Amul said that we are informing the customers. We are informing the customers because what we are trying to do is that frozen dessert was not a known category in Indian context, and this is an acknowledged category across the world. So why don't you allow us to inform the customers about frozen dessert category? And that is what we did. Then the court said that, okay, you can have your advertisement, you can actually inform the customers about frozen desserts, but you cannot actually say that frozen desserts are bad, or frozen desserts actually are not healthy, or they are not a good category to use. That is something which you should avoid. That means you cannot show the other competitive products to be bad as such. This was an interesting case which finally led to this scenario where you can actually raise truthful points against other products, but you cannot show them in a bad or negative light as such. That was also something which was visible in the case of Sebamed. Sebamed was a very interesting brand which actually ran an interesting ad campaign on basis of pH value of the products as such. And this was again in battle between HUL and Sebamed came into picture. So the question is that if you are showing the other product in bad light, you should remove that. Another part where you're saying that pH value is important for your product, for soap and other categories can be mentioned, but you cannot show the other product in bad light as such. So that is another interesting issue which came into picture recently in the Indian context as such. So I'll just now touch upon the consumer protection e-commerce rules, which is a very significant development in Indian context, where we didn't had many important consumer protection measures in the context of e-commerce purchases. So when we buy many of the products on e-commerce platforms, the issue was that the e-commerce platforms many times may not provide you clear information about the product, also may not actually provide you with clear mechanisms where you can actually raise complaints against them company, or against them seller. Also, this issue was that many times the e-commerce platforms were saying that we are just what you could call as platforms or aggregators, which means we are like marketplace in on the e-commerce or online marketplaces, where we allow sellers and buyers to buy the to meet and buy the products and exchange the value of money and buy the products as such. Now, the various companies, including Amazon, Flipkart, and all, they were saying that we cannot be held responsible. You cannot actually hold us responsible because we are basically trying to be what you could call as platforms or aggregators or just actually online marketplaces as such. So that is where the issue came into picture, was that how do you hold the, or whom should you hold liable, or how you hold this e-commerce companies also liable. Interestingly, this new e-commerce rules actually brings in the concept of what you could call as fallback liability. This is a very interesting concept for all of us to know. This, in simple terms, it means that the platforms like Amazon, Flipkart, and other e-commerce platforms cannot run away, saying that we are only allowing the sellers and buyers to meet and exchange the products and try to actually what you could call as be a platform as such. That kind of concept doesn't absolve you from the responsibility under the consumer protection law. You still have a responsibility to consumers because you are providing them intermediary, or you become aggregator, or you become a platform. You still have a responsibility to customers, and your responsibility doesn't end at the time when they are actually you're allowing this customer and the seller to meet. So you may also have to take responsibility. You can still come under the consumer protection law. That is being clarified in the e-commerce rules in the present context. Now, this development is something which we are actually seeing an important, significant implication upon the e-commerce organizations, because they cannot just run away from any responsibility in today's context as such in India. Apart from this, there's various interesting questions that do come into picture. I'll just raise these questions, and I'll just try to give you some clarity, and I'll just wrap it up in another 2-3 minutes. So the questions which are also interestingly becoming very significantly noted in Indian context is something like, what about surrogate advertisements? Surrogate advertisements are advertisements where we actually may not actually show the product or the service that's being offered, but you actually try to brand it through something which is not exactly considered to be a prohibited category of advertisements. So, for example, it's being usually used by various other beverages companies, where they may not actually, alcohol beverage companies, they may not actually show the alcohol beverage as such, but they may actually show you the brand name with other products such as soda or any other products then may come into picture. So this can be used by various such other prohibited category of manufacturers or product categories, and that is where surrogate advertisements, where you actually hide behind another product and try to push your brand name. How do you look at this kind of surrogate advertisements, especially around sporting events, entertainment events, and other kind of events, which have been largely viewed by mass viewership issue comes into picture. How do you look at that? Is an issue which is very interesting in the consumer context, consumer law context. It is also an important area where you look at celebrities coming and trying to endorse the brands. This is another issue. Can you hold celebrities liable, and to what extent you can actually hold the film star or the sports cricketer who actually endorses products or aspects like cryptocurrency and other aspects which they are endorsing? Can you hold them liable or responsible under the consumer protection law? So I'll just touch upon the issue of celebrity liability, a new interesting development that's coming up in India, where after the 2019 change to the consumer protection law or amendment to the consumer protection law, it's interesting to be noted that we actually can see that the celebrities who endorse the products have responsibility in case they are not endorsing with a clear understanding of the product. Like there is a lot of ads of fantasy cricket league, cryptocurrencies and other aspects coming up from cricketers and film stars who endorse these products. This is importantly a point which comes up where they may be held responsible, or they can actually be held responsible now under the consumer protection law for endorsement liability if they are actually found to be endorsing products which are misleading, or wrongful advertisement issue comes into picture, or unfair trade practice comes into picture as such. So I actually try to give you a quick overview of consumer protection law and the various issues that do come into picture. And I would actually wrap up my presentation here. I would actually just be happy to answer any queries that any of you have regarding this topic. So I hope I could give you a gist or a bird's eye view of the topic as such. Right. So I'll wrap up and wait for any queries from the participants. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Deva Prasad sir. In such a lucid manner, you covered up the entire topic of Consumer Protection Act, be it, a simple example of car parking of Tata company, or be it the comparison of Amul company and HUL. And another part also I found out, I could locate from your session is that, till what extent cases have gone till High Court and Supreme Court for such a minor manner. So if we as local people are aware, and if we are active in taking certain actions, I'm sure that law plays a major role in that. I'll request students, if they want to ask any question, to type in our comment section.
You get my point?
Yes, Deva Prasad, there is a question that in the Coke advertisement, where if you have seen that where Ronaldo had removed the bottle, the question is the other way around. Can the Coca-Cola company can they file any claim the other way around?
Right. So that's a very interesting point which comes into picture, but that may not come under consumer law, because neither the Coca-Cola brand nor Ronaldo may be coming under the ambit of what you could call as a consumer protection law, but they may be governed under the contract, because you are endorsing a product of a brand. You may actually have a contract with the brand, or in that context, your club, because you're part of a club, your club may have a contract with the Coca-Cola brand. Then under that particular endorsement contract, you may have certain obligations in case you are not rightfully endorsing, or you are showing them your endorsing brand in a bad light. You may actually be having issues under the endorsement contract, but not under the consumer protection law. Consumer protection law, it won't come into picture. Right?
Hereby, I'm reminded of cases where of McDonald's, and they all had to face certain problems because they were using beef. Yeah, and in a country like India, especially in the state of Gujarat, where religious sentiments of people also played a major role. So while discussing this frozen desert concept, I was reminded that only that people are used to having ice creams on the day when they observe fast. And if you use the word edible vegetable oil, still,
Right.
oils are not allowed in case of when people are observing fast. So
Correct.
a lot of issues, yeah. But thank you so much, Deva Prasad, for your time and for your valuable inputs in this matter.
Actually, ma'am, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I have a very practical question. The thing is, uh, very often we notice the cases reported in the newspapers that someone filed a case against an insurance company or some company, right? And the consumer court gave the ruling against the company and in the favor of consumer, and the company is asked to pay this much of fine and penalty and all those things. But practically, many a times I've seen that the big companies having more resources of the and more legal loopholes and all, because they have more legal advisors and legal personals handy to their disposal. Many a times it seems that the rulings of the consumer courts are not that much. They are not followed, or they are not. So, how much power the consumer courts have for
Right.
getting their ruling implemented, executed, and can there be
Right.
any contempt of court kind of a procedure there if the things are not implemented within a time or so? Because I don't think consumer courts rulings are taken that seriously.
That's a very interesting point. So actually, that's the point where I think it is not only consumer courts rulings, but I think even various of the high court rulings also sometimes actually are not taken very seriously by the corporate organizations. They try to actually evade the responsibility, and this issue actually comes up in certain contexts, like what you could call as insurance companies, as you mentioned, certain contexts where automobile dealers are good examples where they try to evade the responsibility. What can be done to solve the problem? It's obviously an issue where either the higher court, like Supreme Court, or the ministry level, they may have to actually take up a bit more proactive action. That is the better way to look into it. Second is that regulators may actually play a role. For example, what is now happening? So you gave the example of insurance companies, when the regulator like IRDA, Insurance Regulatory Development Authority, intervenes, and they actually take some issue where if you have a lot of pending cases, and if you are not settling the pending cases in the consumer courts, or any pending grievances, the regulator can also intervene and say that they can actually push the companies to actually be on the line. Also the consumers have been informed about this. For example, nowadays we look at claim settlement ratio, as well as various other points which the regulators come out with to buy the insurance. So that is also a point which is now coming out, that is disclosure, information disclosure, which the consumers actually look at, and that also forces the companies to be responsibly looking at these issues. So various other mechanisms are also there, but I think, yeah, that's a very valid point. Better implementation of the decisions by proactive action from the government agencies and judiciary is much needed. Yes, that's true.
Yes, sir, there is one question from a student that
Yes.
nowadays students are watching that Shark Tank
Right.
on a regular basis. There is a question that there is one case going on between Ashneer Grover, the co-founder, and
Right.
Bharat Pay about fraud. So does that come under consumer awareness or not? That is a question
Right.
from
Yeah.
a
So I'm not very aware of the entire legal issues in the case. So I think my answer would be just to looking at certain of the assumptions which I have based on whatever newspaper reading regarding the aspect. So when you look at a fraud as an issue, whenever consumers are being any consumer facing company, what you could call as a business to consumer company, they can actually look at this issue from the perspective of consumer law, as well as they can actually look at this issue from the perspective of criminal liability also. So consumers have the option, either you can actually, whenever there is a cheating or a fraudulent dealing case, you can actually look at both going to consumer court and claiming a compensation based on unfair trade practice or deficiency of service, or in the product category we mentioned about defective products and all. Otherwise, you can also, as in this is a parallelly running aspect, you can actually also go to the criminal mechanism and try to look at criminal liability. That means criminal Indian Penal Code can be actually pressed to action for the purpose of any of the fraudulent aspect also. So that option is left to the consumer or to the person who has been aggrieved as to how do you want to take it forward. So if you are many people actually try to look at both the options. If you want to press the company clearly, you can look at both the options. And now, if it's a major fraud or major issue where many consumers have been affected, the government also can intervene, and they can actually look at the option of taking action by from the government perspective also. Government also may intervene and take forward the action either under the consumer law or under the criminal liability mechanism. So it's a very good question, Vandit. I hope I could actually give you certain clarity on that particular issue, right? Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I think students are not having any question, or they are not mentioning in the comment box. All right, Vandit, I hope your answer is clear. And I think, sir, you gave a very different angle of criminal law as well, because we are coming from commerce background, so we are more into that commercial zone always. But yes, a lot of various aspects are to be thought about. All right, sir. So thank you so much. On behalf of GLS University, Faculty of Commerce, SMPIC, we extend a very warm gratitude, and we are very obliged that every time, whenever we request, you are here to conduct session, and we are looking forward for various such sessions in future as well. I thank GLS management, our Dean, Dr. M.E. Joki sir, my colleagues, Dr. Keur Vora sir and Dr. Bimal Solanki sir, for extending their support. Thank you so much, sir, and looking forward for various such sessions. Thank you, sir. Thank you, students,
Thank you.
for patient hearing. Thank you, sir. Okay.